Hello, this is Hamlet, and this is my Proving Grounds Healer Silver Guide for level 100. In Healer Proving Grounds, you get 4 NPCs joining you to make a full party, a tank and 3 DPS. As in other Proving Grounds, waves of mobs spawn periodically, but for you, the only rule is that you can't let any party members die. The tank will tank them and the DPS will kill them for you. Silver is generally a test of being able to use your class's basic toolkit. Here, your single target and AoE heals and a few other minor tasks like dispelling. But in this video, I'll talk through exactly what you can expect from all the waves to make it a little easier for people who haven't done Proving Grounds before and are looking to get their dungeon requirement done. I hadn't said much about the first wave, which was just one single melee mob hitting the tank, especially because there was a wave identical to it in bronze, which you had to do on the way here. Wave 2 is going to be the first time you encounter a significant AoE mob, the large Hive Singer. There was actually a wave just like this in bronze 2, but to review again, he's going to periodically cast a spell that does noticeable damage to everyone in the party. Now here in this video, I'm not going to worry about interrupting. A lot of people have talked about how interrupting helps you in Healer Proving Grounds, but I just want to point out that at this level you don't have to focus on it if you're not comfortable or not used to doing it. The 2 party members who can interrupt, Key and Caven, will get a substantial number of their casts, and as you can see, the ones that get through aren't really enough to threaten the party. You can just heal them up in whatever way you feel like. You'll notice the last Ripper from Wave 2 isn't quite dead when Wave 3 starts. That's not a big deal. It's expected occasionally in Healer Proving Grounds. You just worry about healing as the party continues killing the mobs. Wave 3 introduces another new mob type, the Flame Caller, a caster that this time casts single target spells, and again the party members will interrupt a substantial chunk of them. It's a small Flame Caller so far in this wave, so the fireballs that get through aren't very likely to kill someone. Try to keep using efficient single target heals on the tank and anyone who gets hit by a fireball to keep the group topped up as you go into Wave 4. Wave 4 is the same as Wave 3, but now it's a large Flame Caller and a large Ripper. So after a little bit of a warm-up, we're getting into things that deal more damage. The Pyroblast from the large Flame Caller can do substantial chunks of damage to someone. If you see there is almost half my HP, but as long as the group is generally topped off to start with, it's going to be very unlikely for it to actually kill somebody. So you want to just keep focusing on staying caught up on the tank and healing back up gradually. I use HOTS, but whatever equivalent your class has for simple single target healing anyone who gets hit by a Pyroblast. The Ripper by itself is still not a huge amount of tank damage, but you just need to keep a steady flow of healing into him. And again, your focus is to be topped off as the wave ends, because that leaves you nice and stable to start the next wave and not have anything be too threatening. Wave 5 is the first more intense wave that happens in Silver. It starts out with only 2 mobs, both a large Ripper doing tank damage and a small Hive Singer, which isn't a large amount of group damage, but it's some. And a few seconds into it, a Flame Caller will spawn over on the left. In general, in this wave, the focus is to stay on top of whatever Hive Singer damage goes out at the start, as you can see with Wild Growths happening right after the Sonic Blasts go off from the Hive Singer. The group's at full by the time the Flame Caller starts casting Pyroblasts, and it's just like the previous wave at this point. One thing I didn't focus on before is that when a Flame Caller spawns, it does that initial channel where it throws fire patches all around the room. You generally don't have to worry about it too much. You don't stand in it, of course. Sometimes party members will stand in it and take a little damage, which is annoying. Unless you have Leap of Faith, there's not much you can do about it. If you are going to try interrupting something, then interrupting that initial channel, Invoke Lava, is a useful thing to do. Wave 6 introduces another new mob type, the Aqualite. It's a reasonably hard-hitting melee mob that in addition puts a dispellable debuff on people. You can see I just got one there. The debuff ticks mostly harmlessly for 6 seconds, but if it expires, it explodes and does a substantial amount of damage to people in the area and knocks them back. So it's basically a check to see whether you can pay attention to your frames and dispel while worried about basic tank healing, which is the only other thing happening in this wave. There's no other damage on party members. If you're using default frames, which I'm showing off here, it's pretty easy to see the debuff. If you're not, then you have to make sure whatever frames are using clearly show dispellable debuffs, which any reasonable set of healing frames should be. It's just a basic check of adding in dispelling within a short window, 6 seconds, while you're doing normal healing. Wave 7 is mostly more of the same, but now the Aqualight is large, so the Aqua Bomb does more damage if you miss it, which you shouldn't, and it does more damage to the tank, so he generally requires a little bit more attention. There's also a small Flame Caller to mix things up a bit, but since the party damage throughout the rest of the group is so minimal, the Flame Caller doesn't actually add very much scary. It's basically, again, just getting used to never missing a Dispel while you do some basic healing. Understandably, a skill that they want you to be tested on in Proving Grounds before you move on to doing dungeons with people. It looks like they finished this mob early, so you get a little break before Wave 8 coming up, which is good, so that if you are behind in any way, use this time to top off the party. Wave 8 is the final challenge of Silver, and it throws more mobs at you than any previous wave. You may have noticed I haven't used any major cooldowns so far. Expect to use one in Wave 8, regardless of what class you are. If you have more cooldowns that you can use in earlier waves, then feel free to use them anytime you need to in a more hectic wave like 5, but save one for Wave 8 here. It starts out pretty harmlessly. Hive Singer and Aqualight isn't a combination you've had so far, but the Hive Singer can get the group low, the Aqualight is damaging the tank, and you have to Dispel, so it's a lot to pay attention to. And then a few seconds in, 3 more mobs appear, 2 Rippers hitting the tank, and a large Flame Caller, which will punish you if you've gotten behind, and anyone's at half HP who can get one-shot by a Pyroblast. So around when those 3 extra mob spawn is when I use my big cooldown Tree Form and just start pouring heals out into the party. This is the last wave. You don't have to worry about mana. You can use any remaining cooldowns you have up. I could have used Tranquility here if you needed it. Just expect that there's a burst with a lot of damage here, even if the rest of Silver was pretty straightforward for you. And if you have a cooldown and a decent supply of mana, then you'll get through it just fine. Note that Wave 8 doesn't end when the timer ticks to 0. You have to wait until the party finishes off the last mob, and then you've won Proving Ground Silver. You'll get your achievement at this point if you haven't, and now you are able to queue for heroic LFD dungeons as a healer. Congratulations and have fun.